Paul Keating, still good for a quote.
Reckons the AUKUS subs deal is the worst decision by a Labor government since Billy Hughes pushed for conscription in the First World War, which is a pretty big call. Keating released a speech ahead of his press club appearance and he didn't miss, which is not surprising.
Give him a Valium, Mr. Speaker. You've got to be joking. I'm Representative Swill over there because I want to do you slowly. I want to do you slowly.
He reckons the theory that China is chasing world dominance is all a storm in a teacup, to borrow a phrase from one of his proteges. Keating says China isn't the threat that warmongers in the US are making out. Says Beijing's military build-up is all about keeping people away from its territory, which, when you stop and think about it, seems to make sense. The West has been raiding China for centuries. French, British, Americans, Russians all had a piece of it. 2 opium wars, Battle of Peking, capture of Canton, sacking of the Imperial Summer Palace in Beijing. We abused and plundered the country like few other places on Earth. And that's before the Japanese had to go with the invasion of Manchuria.
You think Keating has a point?
I think Keating knows his history, but he doesn't know the contemporary security landscape. The last time he was regularly inside national security briefings, those meetings would have been about the war in Chechnya and the re-election of Yasser Arafat. Keating lost the 96 election on March 2 of that year. His final security briefing as Prime Minister of Australia probably involved Iraq's refusal to let the UN into 5 suspected weapons sites, which happened on March 1. When Keating was running the country, China wasn't on his radar, because it wasn't on anyone's radar. It had barely been 20 years since the People's Republic was actually recognised as a legitimate government. In 1996, China's economy was 1/10 the size of America's. Its military was insignificant because it had no money to buy arms. Don't worry about expansionist foreign policy. China was busy enough trying to feed itself. Fast forward to today, it's about to overtake the US as the world's biggest economy. Its Belt and Road trade policy is creating mendicant countries as far away as Africa. Its weaponised trade pounded Australia with sanctions because we had the temerity to suggest there should be an independent inquiry into the source of the greatest health calamity since Spanish flu. It's creating new islands in the middle of the ocean and then militarising them. It's operating the world's biggest cyber sabotage operation, and it's building a fleet of aircraft carriers. You don't use aircraft carriers for defence. You use aircraft carriers to project influence. It's the ultimate form of gunboat diplomacy. Paul Keating doesn't have the first clue about China's intention in 2023, but apparently saw no irony in accusing the British of being in a desperate search for relevance. He's an apologist for China. Why?
I was on the China Development Bank board for 13 years and 10 years as chairman.
He's pissed off that Australia is no longer using the old Collins-class subs. Why?
The Collins-class boat, which I built with Kim Beazley, was a boat designed in the defence of Australia.
And there's the rub. When he says Labor's betraying its party values by throwing in with the US and Britain, he means Labor's betraying him.
It's not the only accusation of political betrayal at the moment.
Unions are pissed off at Mark McGowan. Reckon he's taking them and the millions of dollars they donate to his party for granted. They're particularly unhappy with the hard line he's taken on pay negotiations. They hate the fact they can't control him.
Because he's too powerful.
He's a rare beast in Labor politics, an unaligned MP who's not beholden to union overlords because he built a career on hard work and talent rather than the basic mathematics of the ALP faction system.
What do they actually want?
A seat at the decision-making table, right next to Nigel Satterley. They reckon the McGowan government is too close to the big end of town.
Can't imagine why.
And they want to be consulted on policy. The flashpoint was a decision by Finance Minister Sue Ellery to partner with the Master Builders Association over construction industry reforms to the exclusion of the CFMEU. That pissed off CFMEU boss Mick Buchan, who agitated for Tuesday's meeting in the city. Unions WA says the government needs to ensure its decision-making processes take into account the needs of working people. McGowan will say it's all a storm in a f***ing cup of Penfolds Grange because he regularly talks about government policy to working people. Chris Ellison, Russell Gibbs, Mike Angie, Bruce Belinge, Michael Chaney, John van der Wielen.
I mean, the rubbish of it, the rubbish.
I'm Ben Harvey.
That's confidence. That's confidence. That's confidence. Once you know what you're doing, there's nothing stopping you. To take on the market with confidence, watch Trading Up, your daily finance update at thewest.com.au.